Hello everyone and welcome to episode 4 of the How to Adult podcast. I'm Sam, your host, joined this week by Tom. How are you, mate?
Hey, I'm alright. Bit tired. But yeah, I'm here.
I was going to say, you sound a bit out of
I'm
it.
here. I actually made it. We're recording this a bit later on than we usually would, purely because I was unavailable to record.
You mean asleep?
No, I was actually like properly ill. I got the jab and stuff, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're recording this a bit later, and because of that, Jack was unavailable today, so it's just us.
Yes, no Jack this week, it's just the two regulars, so we can finally call Jack an on and off co-host.
Yeah, about bloody time.
Yeah, exactly. 4 episodes in, we should have done this earlier. So, Tom, this episode we're going to revisit something we did a couple of weeks ago. That was a bit of a discussion on the games industry. Something that, again, as I said a couple of weeks ago, when you and I get into discussions about it, it's very, very long. But this time,
it's because we never agree on anything.
Pretty much. We talked 2 weeks ago about what we played. Then what have you been playing recently?
What have I been playing recently? Well, as those that have come from my streams will know, lots of strange things. I'm playing a game, Empire of Sin. You ever heard of it?
Yes, I tuned into your stream.
Oh, you did? You were there? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, when you first started playing it.
Yeah.
And I think that the first thing I said was, this reminds me a lot of Muerta, Empire of Crime, I think it's called.
Yes, and XCOM, I think, was your other comparison.
Yeah, well, the thing with calling XCOM is the combat. Because the combat is very, very XCOM. It's the kind of, moving individual units in a turn.
Yeah. Turn-based, square floor, that sort of thing. Yeah. I'm actually supposed to be doing another Empire of Sin stream as soon as we finish this, so there you go.
So you'll be able to properly date this recording. So how have you been enjoying that? Because obviously, as you know there, you're still playing through it. How have you found it?
Well, obviously, if you were there for the very, very beginning, the first half an hour I played it, off stream, I did all the tutorials and going through what everything is, so I could just jump into it. So I spent about half an hour going through all the tutorials and working it all out that way. And then I started streaming. And then I was streaming for about half an hour, and at the end of that half an hour, my main character died. Now, I wasn't prepared for what happened next, because I thought, it'll just throw me back to a previous autosave. No.
Yeah.
It deletes all your autosaves and puts you right back on the main menu as if it never existed. Yeah.
Proper permadeath.
Unaware of proper permadeath. And so I was understanding of that. I've been a bit more reserved with the second playthrough. But I was doing really, really well, and I've been doing really, really well. And then the last half an hour of the last stream I did shows off everything, really. I basically managed to get 4 separate associates killed, and almost got myself killed 3 times through failing 3 battles outside somebody else's hideout. So, it's a win, lose, to be honest. But it's a fun game, and I'm enjoying it, so I'm going to continue.
Because the one of your streams I tuned into when you're playing that, it was kind of when you were setting up this new character, and then I remember I tuned out just after you'd gone through a quite costly fight in a warehouse, where you were literally half a second away from death about 3 times.
Yes, and then when you came back, the character that I just hired and spec'd out was dead. Yeah, he was my second casualty, I think, because initially when I first loaded in at the second time round, I only hired 1 associate, and he survived 1 fight and then died in the second fight, and so I ended up doing quite a lot of solo stuff.
From what I can tell, your problem is that you just bum rush into every single fight and don't think tactically.
Oh, I think tactically. Basically, my main character now is so overpowered that if he basically he can take on up to 3, maybe 4 other people and win. As soon as it becomes more than that, or they have specialties like that bloody sniper, that is where I lose things. So like I said, I had 3 battles right at the end outside somebody else's safe house. Now, I turned up there with 2 characters that I've kept alive for absolutely ages.
Yeah.
And I'd spec'd them out. They were almost fully leveled and everything. And then, literally, close range sniper shot. One guy took it and just it was instant death. Like, I've got an ability that should keep people within, I think it's 5, within 5 meters of me, I think, or something like that. They go down, but they don't die. And he was within 5 meters and he still died. He just took that much damage. So stuff like that is what I was unprepared for. I didn't quite realize that snipers were a thing until I turned up at that fight. But yeah, you win some, you lose some. I'll build an army and go back and take that street with force. It'll be fine.
Yeah. So overall, let's talk about the game a little bit more in that. We mentioned some of the scenarios you've got into. The actual game itself, so it's, as I mentioned, I made the comparison to Omerta. It's a kind of, it's an interesting mix, isn't it? Because it's like a business gang management sim mixed with with like an RPG, but also with hints of XCOM-esque combat. It's a really weird mix, isn't it?
Yes, it is rather strange. I haven't got to the management side of it really yet. So basically the way it works is you start off and you're just a guy that's got off a boat and then is sort of renting something off another mobster. And you're there, quote unquote, working for this other person. And then eventually, there's a bit of a story talkity bit at the beginning, and then after that you walk into this place that this person owns and just take it over, and suddenly you are now the man in charge. And it goes from there. And so you later on down the line you can hire like people, and then you can give them specific roles. Like you can get underbosses, which basically they do like sub management, so it's like automated. They'll just do stuff for you, and stuff like that. And you can control each character you hire individually as well. Like I could have like 3 separate fights and have my associates spread across the entire city if I wanted to. They don't have to stay in a group. I like to keep mine together so that it's stronger. But like eventually you get to the point where you don't need to send your main character out into the world at all.
Just send your henchmen.
Yeah, you just send henchmen, and then your leader just organizes things from one of the hideouts. The only reason he has to ever go outside then is when he's going to a sit down. So,
I was going to say, let's talk about the sit downs for a second, because there I mentioned it being like an RPG-esque thing. Those are kind of the truest kind of RPG-esque bit about it, isn't it? It's like a very, very, I would say, fairly basic dialogue system.
Yeah.
Like you've seen in the Mass Effect or the Dragon Age games or any Bethesda's RPGs.
I was going to say, it feels, those bits do feel a bit like you've thrown the Civ democracy, Civilization democracy. You sort of smash that together with the Mass Effect dialogue system. And you put those two together. That's basically what it is.
Yeah. Those sections of the game, I pointed this out when I was watching your stream, that, that some of the animations of the models looked really odd, and then the lip syncing is terrible in some portions.
Terrible. No, the lip syncing is practically non-existent, mate. There were points where my character was moving his face and nothing was happening, and then there were points where he was saying things and his face wasn't moving. So
it's really kind of on and off, isn't it?
It just it didn't make any sense whatsoever.
Would you say those feel like the most? I'm not going to say ham-fisted because that's a bit harsh. Like kind of last-minute addition. Do you think they're the most last-minute decision that, or at least feels like it in the game? Or would you say that's another, like a certain other aspect?
I think it's more to do with like it's not as much of a core, like essential part. 'Cause it's not a massive game either. It's a tiny little game. But but I don't think that's not really one of the core mechanics. Like the combat is quite a core mechanic, and making sure notoriety and trading and all of this other like management system is a massively core mechanic that I just haven't got to yet.
Yeah.
But the sit down bit isn't really as core, like as main as the rest of them. It just feels like maybe they added it in, ran tests on it a couple of times, decided yeah that works fine, and then just left it.
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness to what I said, like as you say, it's not like the core aspect of the game.
Yeah.
That is mainly like the combat system and the more management bits. So I can understand when you say like why it would feel maybe a little bit ropey, because as you say, that's more of the okay, it works. It's not something that's going to be focused on for a large amount of time. Let's move on and let's keep developing the rest of the game.
Yeah. Well,
I wanted to quickly touch on.
I mean it. Yeah. Here we go. Sorry, I'm just looking at what the publisher has done prior to this as well.
Yeah, it's Paradox Interactive, who have published a hell of a lot of stuff. They're publishing the upcoming Masquerade Bloodlines 2 game. I wonder what thing like Deep Silver also currently attached to it.
They also
I want to see what the developers have
also
done.
did Prison Architect. They've done Surviving Mars, City Skylines, Magica 2. Oh, they did the Victoria series. Okay, I'm interested.
I mean, let's be fair. This is Paradox are the publisher. So if we look at the developer, I'm looking at now. This is Romero Games' second title. The other being Gunman Taco Truck, which was a PC and iOS game from back in 2017.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I actually wanted to bring this up in terms of having a look at what the press thought. I tout myself as a wannabe games journo, so I wanted to see what other critics had said on it. So the Xbox version which you're playing, how long have you played with that, do you reckon?
Not massively long. I mean, including the 2 streams are about 3 hours each.
Yeah.
And then probably another hour on top, so about 7 hours roughly.
About 7 hours. Okay, that's reasonable. That's reasonable to kind of sit your teeth in. So if we look at the Xbox version, which you're playing at the moment, that has on Metacritic an average 68%. I should actually have a look at Open because that's the other one to look at. If we look at all critic reviews, it's got very, very kind of middling reviews from what I've seen. So that's kind of, and I think that's actually the highest score it's got. If you look at the PC version, that's got a 63 on Metacritic.
Oh dear.
IGN gave it a 40. What are the other ones? Again, it's the same thing we had last time. IGN Italia gave it a 70, but IGN gave it a 49 from PC Gamer.
Yeah.
That's not good at all.
I mean, like...
So that's a 63 average. I just want to... Yeah, that was it. I remember there was a particular score, 43% for the PlayStation port.
Yeah.
With Push Square giving it a 30, and then it's a middling 50 for the Switch port. So a very kind of... Probably the definition of a meh to game.
Yeah, I feel like it could be... Those could be boosted if the devs could be bothered to do maybe 2-3 patch updates, because that's all it'd take. Because it'd be, I feel like a lot of that is coming from stuff that just doesn't quite work right, and it doesn't affect the gameplay as a whole. Like, you can continue playing the game. The game itself, at its core, is a brilliant game. It's an amazing idea, and I love it.
Yeah.
But as you can see on my streams, okay, when you're because fights can break out across your territory anywhere. It's not just around your core people. And so if another group decide they're coming over to attack you, you basically control anybody that's on part of your crew in that area. So you'll get like a random guy with a shotgun, a random girl with a pistol, someone with a baseball bat, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's a specific move that you can do with people that just have baseball bats or hammers, or literally just carrying a melee. And it is, I think it's called the shove. Basically, they sprint at them full pace,
Yeah.
and shove them back like 3 squares, so out into like fire, out from behind cover, whatever, and it deals a certain amount of damage. Now, that description that I've just given you of sprinting at full speed and shoving them is how I imagine it would have happened. How it actually happens is the character freeze frames in whatever position they were stood in, slides without moving any of their limbs from their position to right next to the other person's position, and then suddenly the other person goes flying backwards. Because that animation either doesn't exist or just isn't triggered. And I feel like there's a lot of bits that are like that in this game that if they were just patched, people would take the mick out a bit less. Like I watched somebody else do a playthrough. I think the Spiffing Brit, I think it was. He did one of his talented loophole videos or whatever. And he got about, I think he said he got about 6-7 hours into the game. He was playing the PC version, obviously. And he'd done something that had triggered his character to constantly have her pistol out. And so she was stood there in the middle of the street with her pistol up like she was in combat, but she wasn't in combat. And so he had to spend the rest of the game with his character stuck in a position where she was armed permanently. Nobody reacted to her being armed unless he went into that actual scenarios. So it didn't actually affect the gameplay. It then affected his experience of the game. And I've had a similar glitch to that where my character is in the position where he should be holding a pistol. The pistol isn't actually there, and it is only his upper torso for me. It wasn't full body like it was for Spiff. But yeah, it's little naggy bits, and I'm sure that there's going to be a lot more of that sort of thing further out throughout the game as well. Because it just feels like they made it, they released maybe 2, maybe 3 updates to fix it near its release date, and then got rid of it.
Yeah. I've just realised something that I should have when I said the name of the developer. So the name of the developer is Romero Games. Now, I wanted to have a look, because obviously on Metacritic it says that there are 2 games that this studio has developed. Now, So the headquarters of Romero Games is in Galway, Ireland. Now that's sprung, and for any of you that are long-time viewers of the games industry, that may also ring a bell, because this studio was founded by Brenda and John Romero. John Romero being the man who was pivotal in creating the FPS.
Well, that's a bit weird then, isn't it?
Yeah. Now I remember a couple of years ago, he had a Kickstarter project called Black Room. Now, as far as I'm aware, that never came out of Kickstarter hell. And yeah, these the 2. So John Romero did work on a couple of stuff since the days of participating in Quake and Wolfenstein and Doom. So, it's because I thought, it came out in December, and, if it's still quite buggy, then I wonder kind of if they're still working on it. But that makes a lot of sense that, because one thing I will note is, from what I can see, it doesn't say anything about if this development team is just, hang on, just double check on their website. Okay, so it's a pretty sizable team. Because I was going to say, it only lists with regard to those working on it as the CEOs of being Brenda and John Romero. So there is a reasonably sized indie team behind this. As we said, there are still bugs in it. But the one thing I will credit it with is, from what I remember watching your stream, the object interactions, because most object interactions in games can be really kind of up in the air, and sometimes it will work perfectly. Other times the character models will just flop through a solid object.
Yeah.
I remember there was a scenario where you'd shot an opposing gangster, and he kind of blasted back against a lamppost and just dropped to the floor and was leaned up against it. Am I remembering that right?
Yes. I mean, I did a lot of fighting in that game, so that could have happened
Yeah,
many
yeah,
times.
yeah. But yeah, that could be. I mean, the thing is, as I said, this is as a studio, this is their second game. Obviously, we should look at the CEO is John Rowe, who's got a lot of a back catalogue when it comes to games in this industry. But 1st of December it came out. We'll see. We're now 5 months on from its release.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's actually I didn't realize quite how new it was either. This 1st of December 2020 to say what it was.
Yeah, so let's hope they will be able to get out a patch, and maybe that'll fix some of the issues. Maybe we can, if it does release a patch, we can revisit it on a future podcast and talk about maybe how it's improved. Because it looks like the actual look and style of the game is quite nice.
I'm just looking at it.
It's got an interesting style to it.
Looking at it on Steam, and the reviews. Even Steam are saying it's got mixed reviews. So 44% positive overall, but the recent ones are 55% positive. So I'm thinking, because there was an update for it just after I downloaded it, so I think that might have been something that has improved on it.
Okay, quite possibly, yeah. I was going to say, I've just looked at the again, Empire's Sun, like some of the notable ones it points out are the PC Gamer with 49, IGN 4, the Metro gave it a 3 out of 10, so yeah, it's getting pasted. Or it got pasted, shall we say. But yeah, as you said, maybe something to visit after it's had maybe a patch or two that have fixed some more of the issues.
It looks as well like they are planning on releasing more stuff for it as well. So already they've got
that's a good sign.
There are extra, like, obviously playing it, there's something like 10 different mobsters you can choose from right at the beginning. They've already released a mobster pack that gives you another 4, so it gives you 14 to choose from.
Okay.
And then there's an expansion pass you can buy, so I'm assuming that will allow for extra things. Mm-hmm. I know how you feel about it, but still, I'm using it as evidence that there is more coming.
It's just that an expansion pass for an indie game that's not really, that was like.
I mean, how much?
I'd rather instead of releasing all this new content. Well, I was going to ask you this new mobster pack. Is it a free update to the game, or is it a paid bit of DLC?
So it comes with. It's like when you buy games when they first come out, and they give you like multiple different editions to buy from. So you get for this, there's the standard edition, deluxe edition, and premium edition. Standard edition, you just get the base game. Deluxe edition, you get the mobster pack, and then obviously it basic stuff in game. So you get like golden weapons sets and curb stomp executions and blah blah blah. And then the premium edition, you get all of that plus the expansion pass. And I think looking on Steam price, premium edition is $54.99.
Yeah, I mean, I've just pulled up my Steam as well. Like that is.
So you're paying
it launched at 35 quid.
Yeah, £20 more to get potentially, if they're doing it, because obviously the publisher is the same publisher that does Stellaris, and Stellaris has had how many DLCs? Like 4. I think they're on season 3 of all of the DLCs at this point. There's like stupid amount of them.
Yeah, there's loads.
I do have them all, to be fair, for Xbox. So if they're going down the same route with this as they did with that, then I'd say £20 for that expansion pass would be worth it. But that's only conditional on if they are doing the same, like similar with this as they did with Stellaris. Because Stellaris, I paid like £15 per season pass. And each season pass had 4 DLCs, and the DLCs individually would cost £9 each. So I saved so much money getting the season pass for the DLCs, because I mean, I accidentally bought the season 3 season pass when it first came out, and there was nothing on it, because I got all the DLCs in the game and everything at around the same time that the season 3 season pass had come out. And so there was nothing on the Season 3 Season Pass. So I just went on and I just bought everything. I'm like, right, I want all the DLC, I want everything. I want to have the full game. And then it wasn't until later on where I think I was talking to Ronnie or someone. And he was like, oh yeah, you don't need to get that bit because there's nothing on it yet. I'm like, oh. But they've released 3 expansions on that season pass since then, and I haven't had to pay a penny for those. And they're all like 10 each, so.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've just remembered, because as you say, Paradox Interactive are the publisher who also published Prison Architect, and as you say, Stellaris. They've also done Crusader Kings. But I've just looked, so obviously they also published, and I've forgotten about this, City Skylines.
Yes!
And there's a lot of DLC for City Skylines. So on Steam, I will clarify, this is just on Steam, I'm looking at this. So it's got 64 games that Paradox have published. They've got 361 separate pieces of DLC.
And
so they're a publisher that quite like their DLC for their games.
That's City Skylines, yeah? Surviving Mars has got quite a few as well, I know about.
No. So sorry. Let me clarify. So the 361 DLC, that was every piece of DLC that's been released for Paradox's 64 games it's published.
In total. Okay.
Yeah. But I mentioned City Skylines because I remember there's an absolute metric crap ton for that game.
Yep.
Because I was going to try to get it all because, as you say, like I wanted the full experience of City Skylines, and it's like, oh, hang on a minute, there's just a literal shit ton that I would need to buy.
Yeah. So, which is why I went through and I got it all and stuff, and I then realised I didn't need to. But they also did the Victoria series, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Mountain Blade. I didn't know they did Mountain Blade.
Yeah, they seem like a publisher that mainly focus on strategy games, but yeah, they've got some decent action titles as well in their repertoire.
Yes. Hearts of Iron. Yeah, so I reckon that it's a game that maybe didn't have the best start, but I think it's definitely going to have a decent life.
It's one of those that's got the potential to be good, but the thing that Romero Games need to do is focus on fixing the game and making sure it's the best quality product, and then you can go and do all your DLC gubbins.
I think they've just set it up so that they can release DLC in the future. Well, at least I hope they don't have DLC ready to release now when there is still quite a bit wrong with the game at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I say, it's all stuff that would affect the player's perception of the game. Nothing in it so far that I've come across affects the actual playability. Like the game itself isn't broken. It's the visuals within it, I think.
Yeah. You've not had any game breaking bugs. It's just that certain animations not triggering.
Yeah, it's all cosmetic so far.
So yeah, that as we said, Empire of Sin could be all right, but it's just one of those. Paradox are one of those publishers that I always think you've got a good track record mostly of games, but as we said a few moments ago, their love of DLC is a thing that kind of makes me worry, and it's the same with something like Bloodlines 2. Whenever that surfaces, is the amount of DLC they'll do for that.
Yeah. I
mean, obviously it's different because I think Bloodlines is going to be in first person. Ooh. I think first or third person action game. And with stuff like City Skylines, with Surviving Mars, with all of these strategy games, they do a lot of it is like extra buildables, extra factions, all that kind of stuff.
It's stuff that gives you an ability to play it a little bit differently, as opposed to something that just affects you instantly. Which is something I quite like in games. I mean, going back to Stellaris, the latest DLC for that, well, at least for Xbox, I'm not entirely sure what the latest one for PC is. The latest one on Xbox is the Lithoids, which is rock people.
Okay.
And that only came out, I think, last week before, for Stellaris, and that, although it doesn't sound that interesting, they did release a little bit of a overhaul when it came to civs in that game, with it.
Can I just correct you on something just quickly?
Yes.
So you said that the latest bit of DLC the Xbox version has got is the Lithoid species pack.
That is the latest one, unless there's one that's come out even more recently than that I haven't seen.
Well, I was going to say there's been 3 bits of DLC that have released since then.
3?
Yeah. 3.
Please explain to me what these are, and then I will explain to you why I do not have them.
So last year, there was in March last year, there was something called Stellaris Federations, which added.
Are you sure you're looking at the Xbox and not the?
I'm looking at Steam.
So you're looking at right. So yeah. So that's the PC stuff.
No,
the PC.
Yeah. What
PC
I'm saying
Stellaris and Xbox Stellaris are currently at 2 different levels.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that because you said on the Xbox version, Lithoids is the latest one, and I was saying that, and I was going to go ahead and say, so so at the moment, the Xbox version is 3 bits of DLC behind the PC version.
It's 3 bits of DLC and a whole load of updates behind the PC version. So the PC version at the moment actually has a lot of things on it that we want for Xbox. One of them being you can choose how your spaceships fly, like how they travel from one system to another. So obviously the default thing in Stellaris is hyperlanes through space, and they're little basically lines on a map that connect to different systems together. Now I think they said they've introduced 3 or 2 other separate drive systems that you can pick. I don't know whether you pick it for your civilization or you pick it for the map that you play in to begin with. Like when you first set up the galaxy when you're playing. But you choose it essentially. And I think another one is warp drive, that it takes a certain amount of time for them to get from one system to another. And then there is another one that I can't remember.
Okay.
But they basically they introduced multiple different ways of traveling, and that the way when they did that completely changed sort of the combat of the game for a lot of people, because suddenly you're not trying to take over a system because it's only got one line out to the enemy. You're actually having to bolster like your entire border as opposed to just strategic points, and so I think that update is something that we really want, and apparently it's coming to Xbox soon, but I'm not sure. But yeah, if
as we said, there's loads of updates, and
ridiculous.
As we said, loads of DLC that Xbox is far behind on with regard to the Steam version.
Yes, I mean, yeah. So like I was saying about the lithoids, like it doesn't seem like it's a lot. So like I said, it's about a 10 quid for the DLC, and a lot of it, you look at it and you're like, oh, okay, so I get to have a new player card and get to make up a new backstory. Cool. What's the big deal? Now, that's only the way they advertise it. When you actually get down to playing it, it is a completely different playstyle. I started basically as soon as I downloaded it. We ended up doing I did a stream with Ronnie and James. Unfortunately, cut short because my internet broke. Other story. But like, I decided that I was going to play them as that, like, play a Lithoid faction because I wanted to explore it, and because I just downloaded it and it was new and I thought it'd be really cool. And there was so much more that was added to it that I wasn't shown in any of the advertisements or the explanations for the actual DLC itself. So like instead of colony ships, because they're the lithoids, they are rock, essentially. They are rock beings. Then they don't consume food, they consume minerals and stuff like that. But because they're rocks, the way that you colonize another planet is by forming up several of these beings into one massive rock in space, and then shooting said rock like a meteor at the other planet. And then they fly down, smash into the planet, and that then is you've colonized it. And like they get their own buffs and stuff like that. So like lithoids are stronger than the average humanoid or whatever. And so like they add on a lot more than what they advertise. And I think it's one of those things where if you don't know the game and you're just looking at it as a piece of DLC going, oh, that just looks expensive to get essentially a new skin, then it's not worth it. But if you've played the game and know how this stuff can interact and how, I think it does change things.
I wanted to say a couple of things on this, right? So first of all, I'm just looking up at the... Hold on, so how much is that? No, Microsoft, we want the English version. I'll see that later. So I'm just trying to find the price comparison. So you said that the lithoids is about £10. So I think you might be a bit off. It's listed on Steam as being $5.79 and on Xbox in dollars as $7.19. So I'd say it's probably around the same price.
Yeah.
I looked because I thought that's a lot of money to be paying for a picture pack. Basically.
You see, yeah, but you don't play Stellaris, do you?
No.
Yeah. So this is what my point was. Like, for people that don't play it wouldn't get it, and then if you play it, you actually understand that these DLCs do bring extra bits that are just not advertised.
Because Paradox literally describes it as the Lithoid Species Pack features a selection of new rock-based species portraits and ship models for players who take nothing for granted.
Yes. That is no. It brings so much more than that.
So I wanted to note that. Okay. The other thing is that I've just had a look. They kind of scale this. It seems the portrait or the species packs are just under £6 each. The Federations pack, which is meant to be the next one that's coming to the consoles, is just under £16, and then there's another species pack. I mentioned that the console version was fall behind. I need to correct myself. As of the time of recording, the Stellaris Nemesis DLC hasn't released yet.
Yes.
It comes out on the 15th, but when that does release, assuming that the Xbox version won't have the Federations pack by then,
we won't.
Then the Xbox will be fall behind.
Yes. So hang on. I can look at that list. I've got that list up too. So we have everything up to Megacorp.
Oh, okay.
So the Necroid species, the Federation's Nemesis, we don't have any of those. But Megacorp was the last big one. So like I said, so there's big DLC, which is like the Megacorp, Apocalypse, Utopia, which come with massive changes to the game. So they added like Ascension perks and stuff like that, which can progress your factions forward and stuff to certain levels. And they affect the world around you and what spawns in that world and different. They added like 100 odd different storylines in there, and it's not 100 odd, but it's a lot. Okay. And that with the big ones, it does bring a hell of a lot. Like the Megacorp stuff, that added an entire new style of civilization.
Okay.
It made it so you could have an entire civilization based around being just one big company, as opposed to being just a civilization with a government and stuff. You had like a board of executives and a CEO was in charge, and you could make like trade deals that like benefit you a bit more and stuff like that. It was a lot. The Megacorp stuff is a lot more based around money and stuff like that. And so it added so much to it. And like the one before that, Apocalypse, added, I think it was stuff I've not ever managed to get to yet, because it's all late game stuff. But it's like mega structures. I think one of them, you get Titans and Colossus ships, which you can put Weapon X weapons onto it, which basically are like planet crackers. So you go up to a planet, you shoot the planet just explodes. I know my mate Greg likes to use those because he doesn't build armies. He just waits until he gets to the late game, then goes around and blows up everybody else's planets. But yeah, so like the big ones really do bring a lot. So when it comes to like the price on those, it would make sense.
I wanted to say, so we've talked a little bit about what you've been playing recently. use a nice professional segue. Speaking of space games, we've had a couple of bits of news come out over the past couple of days regarding Elite Dangerous's Odyssey expansion.
Yes!
That's going to be releasing. Now, to give some context here, Tom, you play a lot of Elite Dangerous, don't you?
Well, I did. I'm not gonna lie here. I haven't played Elite Dangerous in about. Well, I think I haven't played Elite Dangerous this year. Let's say that. But I did play quite a lot of Elite Dangerous. Yes. The reason I stopped playing is I don't know. I ended up. It's one of those things when there's a large group of you, you all sort of like migrate between certain games.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of those things, and I haven't managed to get back to playing it in a long while. I think is all, but I saw about this new Elite Dangerous Odyssey DLC, and I got rather excited. So
yeah, that's the context, and also for context, I played Elite Dangerous a bit when it first came out, and stopped quite quickly because I couldn't figure out the travel. I couldn't figure out the piloting controls. It always ended up either my ship standing still or me firing and crashing into a planet.
Yeah, Yayan did the same thing, except he managed to both run out of fuel and explode at the same time.
Yeah,
I don't know how he did it.
Yeah, and with regard to the Elite Dangerous Odyssey DLC, I did see a little bit, basically what they released as the teaser at the PC Gaming Show last year. So I know a little bit about this DLC. Now, from what I understand, Tom, of this news that came out a couple of days or a day ago at this point, there's a bit of an issue with the alpha expansion, isn't there?
Apparently so, yes.
Or the Odyssey expansion, which is
yes, apparently so. So the expansion itself is in alpha at the moment because purely it's essentially another game. It isn't just an expansion. It's an expansion because it's coming second, and it's because it's not a game of itself. It is essentially an add-on for this one. It's more of a merge of two games. So the expansion is still in alpha. The whole premise of it is that you technically, if you have this expansion, would not have to own your own spaceship at all. Like, at all. You would be able to complete all of the jobs. You'd be able to do all the story, whatever. And you'd actually be able to complete the game without ever owning your own spaceship. Without ever setting foot on the cockpit of a spaceship or anything like that. You wouldn't have to do any of that. They've added that much in that you'd basically... Because for those that don't know, the Odyssey expansion is essentially... If you've played Elite Dangerous, you know you can't get out of your cockpit. And I know a lot of people, me included, have sat there and gone, well, they're walking around, why can't I get out?
Yeah.
So it's a bit... It got frustrating, but it was one of those things. You just sort of accepted it because it is the game, and at no point did they say you could get out ever. When the devs never said this, so it was just accepted. Oh, eventually, cool, we're not getting out. Now they've said with Odyssey and stuff that you can get out of your ship now. You can walk around. I don't think it's all stations. But you can walk around most stations,
and according to some at least teased documents, you could be able to get down on planets and stuff as well.
Yeah, so the planet side stuff, I think that was one of the first expansions they had for Elite Dangerous, which basically meant, because when the game first came out, it was literally you went from station to station to station in space. The planet side stuff came out, and suddenly you're like, oh, cool. So now we can fly down and land on planets. That's awesome. We can do that. That is a thing. And then with the planet side stuff, they also added in planet rovers. So you can go down, you can land your ship, and then you can drive around on this planet surface in a rover car thing, which I thought was really cool. And then this is basically just taking that idea and going that extra step further of you're no longer needing technology. to do stuff. Like your character customization could actually matter now, and stuff like that. Like you're gonna be able to walk around. Like it's not just gonna be a menu now. I think they're still keeping the old way as well. So you can, like I say, you can go the whole game without owning your own ship. You're also going to be able to just stick to the way it is at the moment. You don't have to get off your ship to do any of this. The menus for doing it all will still be on board the ship, and so you can just do what you have to do at the moment, which is you sit there on a menu and you click through and you get your missions that way. You can do it like that. Apparently, the way they've said it's not. It doesn't affect the gameplay either way. It's just down to personal preference, which to me sounds awesome. But yeah, they've created stations, like interiors, with these people in them, as opposed to just like voice messages between the two of you. So yeah, it looks great. I mean, it means you can go and you can get passengers, and stuff like that. It seems a bit easier that way. It will also allow you, which is one of the big things that's come up. Like I said, you don't have to step foot on anything that you own. Taxis are a thing to get from one station to another. Should you wish to leave the one that you're on, without using your own ship.
Yes.
And they have been slated.
Yes, that's the one thing of this. So I'm personally looking at a rock paper shotgun article on this.
Oh dear.
Now, the first thing that the article reads is that Frontier has shared a statement on the common complaint from its earliest adopters, that being that, and its responses being that space taxis aren't going to get any faster. Because apparently they're very, very slow.
I think it's one of those things where they've said, like I said, everything I've just said has come from when roughly around when they first announced it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the taxi service to get from one station to another, yeah, it's there. You can do it. It's a thing. That's fine. The issue is that it takes a long period of time, and I think it takes even longer depending on how far you want to go as well. Like I think distance is a thing. And so I think it might be one of their things to say, well, you can travel like this, but we recommend you get your own ship.
Yeah.
Because I think the taxi service as well, it sounds like they avoid anywhere that could potentially be dangerous.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, with these big expansions? And we saw it with No Man's Sky. Oh, I can't remember what their major expansion was called. But we saw it with that, with these big expansions, that it allowed things that players love and also things that players hate. And because it's completely changed, especially with something like Elite Dangerous, because it's changed up the nature of the gameplay, from being sat in, like, from when it first launched, you were just sat in your ship. One of my favourite ways I heard Elite Dangerous described was your space Del Boy. And yes, you've gone from that to, you can go on planets, but you're in basically your own Mars rover.
Yeah.
And then to this, which from what I've been reading, it seems like they're basically gone, right, but we're basically transporting Mass Effect into Elite Dangerous. Which, I mean, I'm all for. Like, any proper space exploration games are properly kind of like my kind of bag.
Yeah.
And that being said, however, the idea of what Frontier have done here, releasing in alpha, are we sure that's a good idea? Like, because my thing is, obviously that they've had problems as we can see from the offset with players jumping in and going, oh, this is crap. Now, whether they've released it in alpha because they want to develop it according to player feedback, I can't say to any of that.
I mean, it feels like that's the way they're going, especially because, I mean, like I said, this is essentially another game. It's not, with the amount of stuff they've put into it. It is essentially just it's like their second game. It's essentially Elite Dangerous 2. But instead of making Elite Dangerous 2, they've just mashed it into one game. And so I feel like they need to have player feedback to be able to progress it forwards to make it something that's worth it. Because they've already got a massive player base that love the game.
Yeah.
So they don't want to get rid of that.
I've just been reading this. I've just gone to the bottom of this RPS article, and it notes something actually quite interesting that I mentioned. It's interesting to me that they release it as an alpha. So it seems what they're going to be doing with Odyssey is releasing it in 4 stages to roll out the features of this big expansion. And the second stage is going to be on probably the most talked about feature of this expansion, which is tackling combat, exploration, and compatibility with the base game. Now that, I imagine, is probably where most of the issues are going to come up.
Yeah.
We've already seen they've been complaints and criticism with regard to the way this alpha has been rolled out. I can only imagine how much they're going to get when the combat form of this, or side of this expansion, gets properly rolled out, because that's when people are going to go a bit bonkers with going around basically griefing each other.
Yeah. I don't know. It sounds... I mean, it sounds fun. I reckon it's going to be great when it's finished.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's when it's done, it could be okay.
It's the journey of getting there and how people will respond to it, because Elite Dangerous has always been driven by the players. From the offset, it was... When I first saw it, it was... what year is it? 2021. That
was a 2015 to 2016 game, wasn't it?
So, yeah, it came out 2016, which means, I would have seen it EGX 2017 in Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
They had a massive booth, and the developers, they had a small team from the team of developers at EGX talking to the players.
Yeah.
And they had a massive area where they had a little booth to talk about it, and then everywhere else they just had cockpits set up for people to play. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it was just it was essentially an arena-based space fighter shooter. It was all combat at that point.
Yeah.
Or at least the way they were marketing it at that point was combat-based. It wasn't until a few years later when I actually got it that I realised that there was a lot more to it. And I feel like this might be one of those things where they get everybody to focus on certain areas. And then once you start playing it, you then realise, oh wait, there's a lot more to this.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see how the rest of the rollout of this expansion goes. As you said, it's got potential. There's a lot of features in there that could be proper good fun. Could tempt me to go back to Elite Dangerous. But it's the...
I don't think you're ever going to come back unless you figure out how to fly properly.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, if we go on to... Because I do want to talk about a couple of other stories that we've lined up that we think could be... we want to basically discuss. Okay. So, I think we should get this one out of the way first, Tom. Something I've been really hesitant to even acknowledge the existence of.
Cyberpunk!
Yeah. Cyberpunk 2077. Now, there's been a couple of bits of news on this game over the past week.
Yes.
So, the first one is per videogamer.com. A standalone Cyberpunk 2077 multiplayer game has been cancelled by CDPR. Now, obviously, there was, I believe there might even still be multiplayer stuff embedded in Cyberpunk, isn't there?
Right. About that.
Because from what I remember before it was even released, that's where because people were making excuses and going, oh, that's where the microtransactions are going to be, so it's fine.
Yeah. So there was a lot of talk right from the beginning where it was going to essentially become the new GTA. And it was going to be... Cyberpunk was going to be the new thing. You're going to have massive multiplayer servers where everybody can join and run around and shoot people and basically have a fun old time within Night City with each other. And then it wasn't. And it was just going to be you and your friends that could join you and small groups. Now, it sounds like multiplayer is not actually going to be a thing at all.
Which would make sense given CDPR's track record of making predominantly single-player titles.
Yes. Yeah, so they've never really stuck to an exact multiplayer style in the past for this game, ever.
Tom, CDPR not sticking to something they previously said? You don't say.
Shut up. But yeah, no, so they basically said, yeah, we're not entirely sure we're even going to go down the multiplayer route anymore. I think they've just they just decided they're not doing it, I think, because of all the other stuff they have to fix and things. So that I think that they just decided they're not doing it at all in the end.
Yeah, I want to get onto a quick discussion about this because obviously, the other bit of news that Tom, you were going to talk about is the fact that CDPR have said that they're not going to, just correct me if I'm wrong here, they said they're not going to discuss details or show anything regarding a game until it's very close to release.
Yes, so
is the stance they're taking now.
As a thing, they are not going to be marketing any AAA development games until incredibly close to when they release them. I think it's basically they just want to cover themselves, and so that basically what happened with Cyberpunk doesn't happen again, where they say, oh, it's so close, we're almost finished, and then, oh no, wait, we're going to have to push it back a year.
Well, what's incredible is that, so on this Video Gamer article I've got regarding the DLC being, or some of the multiplayer being cancelled, excuse me, they, as all videogamer.com articles do, they have a bit at the side discussing with the game, basically its basic synopsis, and it's got its first release date as the 1st of January 2018. I wish videogamer.com, I wish that's when it came out so people would stop talking about the bloody thing.
Honestly, that was initially it's supposed to be. That's when it was supposed to be released.
I know, but what I'm saying is that because it's first released on the 1st of January, it's like,
yeah.
Hang on a minute.
I think
you need to go 2.5 years later.
They need to revisit that article and get that changed.
Yeah.
No, an initial release.
Need to update the synopsis for the game.
Initial release, that is correct. But like I said, they pushed it back 2.5 years.
Initial intended release date, we should say, not initial release, because initial release was on November, December 2020.
Something like that, yeah. No, it would have been November. Yeah. It was around November, because it was around the same time that Valhalla came out, because I got them both at the same time.
I want to have a discussion. I want to talk about this, right, about Cyberpunk 2077.
I thought you didn't want to acknowledge its existence.
Well, we've got to talking about it, and I think if I address it here, then that means I won't have to address it going forward. I can just ignore it in any future podcast, and you and Jack can talk about it, and I can just turn my ears off for a bit. Right. So let's get everything, put our cards on the table for a second here. So Tom, you've played Cyberpunk a fair bit, haven't you?
A reasonable amount, let's say. I've played a reasonable amount of it. Yes.
You've got a Let's Play series that's still going on.
Yeah. Let's not talk about
that. And invariably, anytime I'm on Xbox, I will see you probably playing Cyberpunk.
Maybe.
At least
I haven't. I think this is another one. I haven't played that in the past 2 months. I've been really busy recently, so I haven't played it recently. But
it was definitely one that I'd see you and a lot of others playing fairly frequently.
Ben has completed it 4 times, start to finish, and he still plays it quite regularly.
Yeah. So that's Tom, and I believe you found it relatively entertaining, right?
Yes, from the perspective that I knew what I was walking into.
Yeah. Now, to give some context for myself, as I've mentioned already, as a wannabe member of the Games Press, given how much I knew about Cyberpunk, with everything surrounding it, with CDPR flip-flopping and its public admittance of forcing crunch on its work staff, on the flip-flopping of whether there was going to be microtransactions in it, on the flip-flopping and not really addressing of the treatment of trans characters and also the treatment of their workers being absolutely horrific and they're not properly acknowledging it. And then on top of that, obviously what we saw at the beginning of the year, which was them being sued by one of their investors, rightly so, I should add, because the entire time they were marketing Cyberpunk 2077, they used the Xbox Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5 and PC footage, and not that of the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 versions, which were buggy, visually ugly pieces of trash. And even to this day, it's riddled with bugs. It's completely buggered. I've seen lots of footage in which the cars, instead of travelling on the road, they just run halfway through a barrier and all the bodywork falls off. Still not fixed, apparently, that bug. So that's the cards on the table. That's where we stand with regard to Cyberpunk.
Don't forget you can turn yourself into a drinks machine as well. That's a key one.
Did Michael Bay get on board and went, I need advertising for my old Transformers movies?
Have you not heard about this?
No.
Oh, no, it's a bug someone found. Oh, this is a while ago now. If you drive a motorcycle fast enough at a very specific vending machine, you end up just going inside it and then you just drive around as a vending machine.
What did I say about it being a colossally buggy piece of shit?
It's funny because it's basically you get on the inside of the hitbox, so when you walk around, the hitbox just comes with you, and because the hitbox is attached to the drinks machine, that comes with you too.
Oh my god. Yeah, so that's the context. That's the context of where Tom and I stand with regard to Cyberpunk.
It's because I am nice and positive, and I think the best of things, and you are a cynical little man that decides that he hates everyone and everything.
First of all,
love you, Sam.
I'm sorry that I'm acknowledging the truth of the world we live in.
No, it's all sunshines and rainbows, mate. Fluffy clouds.
And also, little man.
Yeah, I know you're bigger than me. I'm sorry.
Pot kettle short ass. So yeah, I think. So the multiplayer stuff first. Let's talk about the multiplayer stuff.
Okay.
As I said, that's what a lot of people are defending, saying, "Oh, the microtransactions are going to be that. It's going to be fine." As we said, it's not really a big issue with regard to Cyberpunk because CDPR make single player games, and it was always odd to me that we're going to put out a multiplayer thing. As you said, it was very much apparent they were trying to cash in on the GTA Online esque thing.
Yes.
With regard to that news that you mentioned a little bit ago about them not going to use any marketing materials until close to release.
Yes.
Now, that is potentially the biggest problem with this and CDPR. Obviously, I mentioned the whole thing of them using next-gen footage to promote a last-gen version that didn't actually work. That's the main problem this game has had. The reason so many people were so hyped up, including myself, I was excited for this up until probably January of last year. I think, but because of the amount of marketing stuff they're putting out, and because they kept on reminding us, don't forget this is Cyberpunk 27. It's coming out soon. It's going to be really good. They did that for such a long time. It burnt people out, and whatever the final result of the game or final product was going to be, it would never live up to people's expectations truly, and second of all, because they'd had so much hype, because they bought into the hype train, they would likely defend it because they got on board with the hype train. They didn't want to feel like they wasted their money or been a fool for following this game and hoping it would be good for 2 years, for even longer than that.
Yeah.
I mean, there is also obviously the as you say, it's likely that they've done this, to basically cover their asses for what they got sued by one of their own investors for doing with Cyberpunk. Now, I am personally of the thought, there is I believe it was the main developer, main head of the studio behind Star Citizen and Squadron 42.
Oh god, we're going this route, are we? Okay.
No, let me finish, because I remember covering this at the beginning of the year. They said that they weren't going to show any footage or any marketing materials up until the game is ready to go. Now, there is like two sides to this. First of all, is okay, yeah, they're doing what they're thinking, what at least their thought process may be what CDPR's is that, let's try and manage the expectations here. The other side of it is it saves the artist from any scrutiny. If we look at Star Citizen specifically and Squadron 42, there is a lot of money that's been, like a metric shit ton of money that's been pumped into that game via Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And people buying the ships. So, like, it almost seems like trying to hold off on the backlash for kind of like, okay, we'll wait further down the line until we've got maybe something that might end up matching the expectations or getting close to them that we set out. I think it's also, it's very clear what I think. I think it's also the case that, as you said, as much as you mentioned inside, I'll admit, I'm quite a cynical individual when it comes to the games industry.
I said it with love.
Mate, I mean,
I want it.
Was it really?
I said it with love.
I mean, but potentially, I will acknowledge that's maybe partly because I have looked into the dark roots of this industry and all the just disgusting stuff that happens. Recently, Activision laid off another 200 members of staff.
Yeah,
and then gave Bobby Kotick a $200 million raise and then have gone, actually, we want more staff to work on more games. Well done, Activision, you tax-dodging bunch of meh.
Whereas I like to ignore it and look at the games themselves.
You like to bury your head in the sand.
Correct. Correct, yes. I don't look into it that much.
What I'd like to say is, with regard to these situations, so, I'm aware that because of my ramblings, we've got away from the point a little bit here. Tom, with regard to, first step with the multiplayer, what are your thoughts on, because you mentioned a little bit, obviously, you mentioned that it's probably that they're cashing in on the GTA Online thing. Do you think that kind of game, because obviously I haven't played it, you have, would that have lent itself, do you think, to a multiplayer?
I think it would have been really good if they'd done it that way. But it was one of those things that they needed to fix the game first. And I think they've come to realise that actually there's need to put so much work into making, so much time and effort into making it work like that, that it actually at this point isn't worth it.
And then in regard to the know about CDPR, as we said, delaying when they'll show footage. How do you feel on that? Because it's something that, as I said, I feel quite strongly about with regard to how it ends up affecting the general discourse around the industry. From your point of view, what do you think?
Well, I mean, it adds a little bit of mystery to it. So basically, what they've put out on their Twitter is it's an image of a side by side of the Witcher's back, essentially, with like the armor and the two swords, and then on the other side, it's the leather jacket from Cyberpunk with the flaming skull on the back. And it's basically those two pictures side by side, and over the top of it, it says parallel AAA development to start in 2022. So they've been really cryptic about what they're doing, but they are saying stuff is happening. So it sounds like they're either doing one of these two, or they're going completely off the rails, and the lead designer is insane. It just, I don't know. It adds a bit of mystery, I think, to it. I think it's definitely, it'd be better for the fans, I think, as well. Like, this Cyberpunk thing isn't going to go away unless the people that are talking about it can then be distracted by something that they've done well. So I think this isn't going to go away until they produce something decent. And that is 100% finished. I mean, like I said, I like Cyberpunk, but it isn't it is broken, and it isn't finished. I like it, but I like it enough to accept that it's not. I'm not looking at it like you say about everyone getting in on the hype and defending it and stuff like that. No, it is broken. What they have at the moment is good. It can keep me entertained for a bit, but it's not finished, and it is broken, and it needs sorting. Now they're saying that, so that tweet was released 30th of March at 4:45 in the afternoon. That was basically saying that another development is in in process or has begun.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're doing that as well as trying to fix Cyberpunk, which, if you will allow me, will lead us into another thing of the fact that CD Projekt Red have confirmed that the expansions and DLCs for Cyberpunk 2077 are still going ahead. They are still going to be creating DLC and expansion content for Cyberpunk.
Well, I wanted just quickly to note one quick thing that I've just that's just come to my mind. You mentioned there that what CDPR claim they're going to be doing from now on, with regard to new games, is more of the teasers and stuff like that. I wonder if they looked at what Bethesda have done for the last for the last decade and a half, and gone. So their games, they do teasers. Like, all they do up until release is pretty much teasers.
Yeah, like the new Elder Scrolls game that's coming out that nobody knows anything about. That I'm really excited for.
They've literally just done their marketing for Elder Scrolls 6 is literally just a panning shot of
mountains. It's
landscape.
Just mountains, Sam. It's mountains and songs. That's all it is.
And a bit of shoreline. Let's be fair.
I want it so badly.
Well, exactly. That's the thing I'm trying to get at. Is I wonder if they've seen that for the most part that's been Bethesda's marketing. Yes, obviously for stuff like Fallout 4 they had the Vault Dweller wandering through through the wasteland. For Skyrim they've had the cinematic stuff and for Skyrim they had the odd panning shot.
How many Bethesda games have you played that you hated that were thoroughly broken and unfinished?
One.
Well, there you go. They recovered from it and they now only release finished things.
No, well,
which one are you talking about? Are you talking about 76?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I
yes.
thought so.
Well, that's what I was going to get at. Is
was
that
rushed,
from what I remember, the most that Bethesda have shown of a game was their biggest flop.
Yes.
And that's what I was trying to get at. Is I wonder if CDPR have looked at the way Bethesda marketed Fallout 3 and 4, and then have marketed the Elder Scrolls franchise, and gone, what they've done is mainly teasers and very small bits of gameplay.
Yeah.
Whereas we've shown we've done full gameplay trailers, we've done all that kind of stuff. And what did it do? It exposed us a bit.
Yeah.
I mean that partly ties into the nature of video game marketing with regard to with something like a movie or a TV show. That obviously you can just chop out bits of the show and just put it in a trailer. It'll get the excitement, but it's already in there. You don't need to do anything else. With video games, you need to create something entirely different because the rest of because the development team is still in progress of making the game.
Yeah.
And trying to get a vertical slice is incredibly difficult in this modern AAA games industry. You look at the way that Watch Dogs, the original one, was marketed. They very, very prettied it up, and then when it came out, oh, hang on a second, it's a buggy, ugly piece of garbage.
It was so clunky. Oh my god, I couldn't play it.
Yeah.
I literally I played it for an hour and then just gave up, and I've never played it since. I think I was riding a motorbike and I collided with a truck, and the truck flew.
Yeah.
It's what?
Watch Dogs 1 was very, very bad.
Yeah.
Very, very buggy and not at all what people had thought because of the marketing, because of the way Ubisoft had marketed that game.
Yeah.
Now,
I hear the newer one is much, much better.
Watch Dogs 2 is fantastic. I loved that. I thought it was really, really good. Watch Dogs Legion, much like Cyberpunk, there's a lot of stuff surrounding it that made me very hesitant to play it,
okay.
I'll be honest. Now, I do want to touch on that a little bit later, but let's just finish on the Cyberpunk stuff for a minute.
Yes,
so, if we look at, you said that they look to be going forward, probably developing Cyberpunk and Witcher side by side, probably, continuing the current development, and obviously Cyberpunk, all the new updates are coming out and the DLC is going to come out.
Yes.
And then working on a Witcher at the same time.
Right. So
with that, I was going to ask
you before you jump on that, not necessarily a Witcher title. Now, it's like I said, it was hinted at, and everybody has taken it as they're hinting at it, but there's been no confirmation anywhere that it is actually happening. All they've said is that there is parallel AAA development in 2022. Yeah. They're not saying what it is. They're not saying what it's to do with. They're just saying parallel is happening, and then they implied that it was something to do with Cyberpunk and Witcher with the image in the background. There is no confirmation anywhere. They're being very secretive about it.
Yeah. So on that, I was going to say, so with this, with the whole thing of parallel, because I'm not entirely sure how large a team CDPR are. Now, the reason I say that is
not that big,
because I wonder if going forward, as these are, as you say, parallel AAA development, I wonder if we're going to start getting smaller games from CDPR.
Potentially.
So they can manage the workload between the teams. Because I'd imagine that going forward, we're going to have... Because, I imagine they probably did have, a lot of early work being done by a CDPR team, and then at the same time, obviously, they had all the DLC and stuff coming out for The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
I wonder if while, they've set themselves up a big challenge with Cyberpunk, I wonder if they're going to, so this portion of the team is going to go on Cyberpunk. Let's make some smaller stuff for the time being, whether it be set in the Witcher universe, whether it be, a completely new IP, whatever it may be.
Well, I mean, so I'm on their website at the moment, and they have got a section on there that says games.
Yeah.
And it's got Gwent, Thronebreaker, The Witcher Tales, Witcher 1, Witcher 2, Witcher 3, Cyberpunk, and then The Witcher Adventure game. So I think it says a lot about what they're representing on their website about where they're going to go with this.
Yeah.
So that's 6 out of the 7 titles are Witcher based. So, I'm going to go with probably doing the smaller games purely because, I mean, the Gwent stuff, that's a multi-platform card game that they've been doing for a very long time. And so, just looping back as to what you were saying about you don't know how big their team is. They have multiple offices, so probably quite large.
Okay. I had this idea that it was quite a small team. So actually, in hindsight, as you say, they're probably already managing that quite well with regard to management of teams between Cyberpunk and
5 different offices.
Cyberpunk and Witcher development.
Yeah, I'm counting 5 separate offices in 5 separate countries on their website. Okay. Large team. Let's go with large team.
Yeah. Okay. So, have you got any more things to talk about? Any things you'd like to say on Cyberpunk? So, there's a couple of other stories I want to get to.
No, not really. I mean, with respect to CD Projekt Red, if it is a new Witcher title, I'm excited. Gives me more reason to finally get to push the ending to Witcher 3, because I still haven't finished that, but I'm excited. So, yeah.
Next thing I wanted to talk about was something you actually mentioned a little bit earlier, when we were mentioning around the time that Cyberpunk came out, Assassin's Creed Valhalla came out. Now, the news is that Valhalla's narrative director, Darby McDevitt, has departed Ubisoft Montreal.
Sad times ahead.
Now, yes, indeed, for fans of that. Again, I just need to quite a funny little thing on the... again, I mentioned earlier the little videogamer.com side thing. This one has Valhalla, first released the 1st of January, 1970.
Oh, yes.
Sort your website out, videogamer.com.
1970. Do you reckon they're doing it on purpose?
Quite possibly. But why would they do it for that? Like, it's a... 1970 is...
hang on, I need to search this now.
It's set in Viking times.
I need to search this now.
I'll let me drop the link to the Valhalla.
Yes, send me the link to Valhalla.
Yeah, I've dropped it in, and that also on the same page has the Cyberpunk one, so you'll be able to see that. I wonder what it has for, because there's a Warzone article next to it. I wonder if that has it. That has it as the 10th of March 2020 Warzone. How bizarre! I don't know why they've done that. I suppose it's just like something they overlooked.
Oh, I hope so. What is this? Is that when they've said it's set?
No, it's so first released
First
on the
release
1st of January,
1st January.
1970.
Yeah, oh my god. That's
If that's from 1970, bloody hell, games have gone backwards.
But I mean, they've got it right though. PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, Google Stadia as well. They've even put Stadia on there, and yet it's first released back then. My god, I need to search this now. 1970 Valhalla. I need to know. There is nothing. There is absolutely...
I mean, I'm not surprised, to be honest. But anyway, I was going to say, just on this thing of Darby McDevitt's left, he put out a statement on Twitter that read, "Today is my last day at Ubisoft Montreal. After a decade of working with brilliant people, creating stories and characters for an incredible series and interacting with our wonderful fans, I've decided to set forth on a new adventure. A special thanks to all the fans and content creators that have supported and expanded on our work for the years. Thank you for your kind attention. You have my dearest respect and admiration. It's been the honour of a lifetime to get to know so many of you." So that's as he said, the narrative director of Valhalla departing Ubisoft Montreal. Tom, you mentioned a little bit earlier, obviously you have also picked up Valhalla.
Yes.
With regard to, because I'd imagine there are, while some DLC is probably already in the can with regard to the story, going forward, because I believe he also worked on Black Flag, do you think, how majorly do you think the narrative director's departure could impact the stories of Assassin's Creed titles going forward?
I'm not entirely sure. So obviously with the Black Flag stuff, they brought out it was more of a game extension than a DLC. It was with all the what's it called? The Adewale stuff. He went around saving slaves and such, didn't he? And that was essentially its own mini game, shall we say? It was an extension to Assassin's Creed 4. So if he worked on that and that was his sort of thing, then I'm not sure, because if they do it for Valhalla and stuff like they have done with the previous games.
Well, I just want to clarify. I've just had a look at his IMDb page with regard to what his contributions. So under his writing credits, he's got Lord of the Rings, but Assassin's Creed. So Assassin's Creed 2 Discovery, Bloodlines, Revelations. He was the lead writer. Who was writing on Assassin's Creed Embers. He was lead scriptwriter on Black Flag, co-writer for Unity. Just says story by for the HTA collection. He was additional writer for Origins, and then narrative director with regard to Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Right, that changes a lot. Because that's pretty much all of them. He's pretty much...
Yes, so he's missing out Odyssey, Syndicate, Rogue 3,
so basically it feels...
Assassin's Creed 1 and Assassin's Creed 2, and the smaller ones like Liberations.
Yeah, so I actually enjoyed 3, so if it's the person that did 3 is taking over the stories, I think it won't be too bad. However, Syndicate was an issue. The story for Syndicate was so not engaging. It just hurt to play. But me being me, as you've heard me say many a time, because it is a thing, I must finish it. Because it's Assassin's Creed, I had to play it. And I had to get through it, so I did. But
so can I just want to quickly clarify. I've just had a look at the... Sorry, Matt, I just wanted to find out. So you said that you quite enjoyed Assassin's Creed 3's story. I've had a look at the work of the two people who wrote Assassin's Creed 3. So Alex Hutchinson wrote only one. That's not a good sign, I don't think. So that as a writing credit, Alex Hutchinson is noted to have written Journey to the Savage Planet, Assassin's Creed 3, and Army of Two: The 40th Day.
Right.
And then Corey May has written for the first, was uncredited for the first Assassin's Creed.
Okay.
Assassin's Creed Vengeance, uncredited. Was the writer on Batman Arkham Origins. What else? Was lead scriptwriter for Assassin's Creed 3. wrote for Revelations, Brotherhood, and Assassin's Creed 2, and also was the scriptwriters for Army of Two, Assassin's Creed, and Prince of Persia.
So
stuff.
if we get Mr. Corey there, and he becomes the next lead, then we're going to be fine. Can't say much to the other guy because he's not done much. But yeah, no, I don't know. It depends on where they want to take it, because obviously they went down. Origins and Odyssey are both really weird games. I mean, as games on their own, they're fine, but in comparison to the rest of the Assassin's Creed IP, they are just weird. They make no sense. Everything's different. Suddenly there's like levels and stuff and gear scores, and it was a bit weird. I mean, they have carried that over into Valhalla, but they've taken the weirdness about it away. So like the gear score is still there, the levels are still there, but it's more open world. So with the previous games, to keep you in specific areas of the map, they just block off the areas they didn't want you to go into with walls.
Yeah.
And then on these big walls, that you could see them. They weren't invisible. They're big white walls with lines all over them. And every time you went near them, you'd get a notification saying this area is outside this memory or whatever, because they wanted to keep it within universe, the memories of the person you're portraying. Now they've taken away those walls. You can go wherever you want, but to stop you from going to specific places, they make the hostiles there considerably more dangerous towards you, because obviously you're a lower gear score. Gear score has become a really big thing in the games industry recently. And when they did it with Origins was weird. Odyssey got weirder, and then they've taken... I don't know how to explain what this weirdness is either. Like...
Well, Odyssey got weirder, didn't it? Because it tried to do, go more into the RPG-esque thing than any of it before it. So it had a lot of kind of grinding and lots of that kind of point acquisition kind of thing.
I mean, right. I'm just going to spoil the ending of AC3 here.
Go on.
So at the end of AC3, they kill off... Well, no. Desmond kills Lucy, and then Desmond gets himself killed. Now, these are the two characters that you follow all the way from the very, very first Assassin's Creed game.
Hang on.
Modern...
Lucy dies at the end of Brotherhood, doesn't she?
Not Brotherhood. No, Revelations, sorry.
Because is it that one? Because obviously he grabs the Apple of Eden and stabs her in the gut.
Yeah, it's Revelations, isn't it? I thought that was... I don't know. Basically, these are the... There's a team of 4 that you follow from the very... Well, no. Lucy's in the very first one. You don't get to Sean and Rebecca until the second one. But... that team of 4, they are the original team that you follow in modern day Assassin's Creed universe. You follow them essentially from the beginning all the way through. Suddenly, Desmond dies. Lucy's already dead. Desmond's died. So Sean and Rebecca they just disappear. They're gone. We don't follow them anymore. Suddenly, they've gone with a bit of a... No, I'm coming to that. I know what you're about to say. Suddenly, the game devs take a completely off-angle direction and decide that you, the player, are the person playing through somebody else's memories. You, the player. You're not playing as a character that's going through somebody else's memories. You, the player, are the person going through the memories. And so everything in the modern day suddenly becomes first person, and they did that for Black Flag, Liberations, and Rogue. Then suddenly... we're doing stuff where in Unity and Syndicate, where there is no modern day, but there is. There's modern day stuff. There are people talking to you over radios and through broken up webcams and stuff, but that's it. You don't do any moving around and working through modern day. I think in Unity the closest you get is you jump through Animus portals that take you to different time zones and different memories, which they've labelled the bleed-through helix effect, where you can jump to different times using this character. And at one point, you're climbing the Eiffel Tower during World War II, being shot at by Spitfires as a Renaissance revolutionary assassin.
Yeah.
Which, those words don't go together at all. But in this context, they do. And then it got weird. Then it got to Bayek in Origins. And suddenly, we're now following a new character in modern day. They went back to the roots. They went back, literally, to the original for Origins. And they said, we are now following, in the modern day, a new character. And I don't know her name. Because I know nothing about her, because you hardly spend any time with her. But they've stuck with that same woman, who basically is the new Desmond, who, instead of going through her own genetic memories, goes round to graves, digs up said graves, takes genetic material from the bodies, and uses that to dive into memories. And that is what it's been for Origins. I haven't played Odyssey, so I can't say for Odyssey. I think it's probably the same. And Valhalla. And they have put so little effort into the modern day side of what's going on, and focused so much on the story. I mean, I get it. It's Assassin's Creed, so you want to play a lot of the, like, historical stuff. That is what the majority of the game is. But taking away the modern day element of it, especially once, because this is all after as well, they linked the Watch Dogs games. So Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed all happen in the same universe. So they've linked the modern day to another modern day game, and then decided, oh no, wait, we don't want to do modern day stuff. The modern day stuff for the last 3 games has been so minimal that it might as well have just not existed.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to it, like, I think especially, like I say, I haven't played Origins, but from what I've seen, it's that non-existent there that, like you say, it turned into more of an RPG. Like, you're more actually playing instead of playing a character who is observing memories, or playing as yourself who is observing memories, like they did in the middle for some unknown reason. You're now playing as the character in the time. And that's very different. That's a very different feel to observing memories. Yeah, you have control over what that character does, but I think it is definitely the feel of, now you're playing an RPG. Well, that's just not Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. Can I address one quick thing?
Please do. I've been talking a lot.
Now, it's all right. You and I, because it's just you and me, we've been talking quite a lot for long periods of time. That's unfortunately what this podcast is. You mentioned that the story of Syndicate was a bit all over the place.
Yes.
Yeah? What's quite interesting is I've had a look at the lead writer and the lead script writer for those games, or for that game, I should say. So the writing credits for the person who wrote Syndicate, Richard Farris, I believe is how this gentleman's name is pronounced. So he was the multiplayer story writer for Revelations and for Assassin's Creed 3. Then he went to become the lead writer for Assassin's Creed Rogue, continued on for Syndicate, contributed to Origins story. Now, the lead scriptwriter has credits of Assassin's Creed 3, Unity, in which they also was the contributed as co-writer, scriptwriter for Syndicate, scriptwriter for Watch Dogs 2, so this is Russell Leese, scriptwriter for Origins, lead scriptwriter for Far Cry New Dawn, and scriptwriter for Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
I don't know what to tell you. They just made a bad one. Everybody makes a bad one sometimes. And yeah. Syndicate, I think, I mean, listening to that list as well, I think having 2 writers that have got 2 very different styles, because they are 2 very different styles. I really enjoyed Rogue. I am really enjoying Valhalla. And that's one by each of them. Like, they have got 2 very different styles.
And I can tell you that
I think putting them into a room.
Can I tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed Watch Dogs 2. I thought the story in that was actually pretty decent. So it's interesting that
I think it's 2 writers they've put in a room, and they both wanted to take it a certain direction, and that direction is not the same as each other.
I would like to point out, so on Syndicate, there was about 6 writers, and I think 2, including, so along with Farris, there were an extra 5 writers, and then script writing, there was an extra script writer alongside Lease. So it's interesting that that
might have made the difference.
Potentially, quite possibly.
Yeah.
So anyway, I like we've kind of skipped over the whole McDevitt leaving Ubisoft, but yeah, we'll have to see how the stories for future Assassin's Creed go. As you say, they've gone a bit off the wall recently, so I wonder if they'll bring on another one of the writers that was part of the previous games, and we'll see how they get on with that one.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they're using that Mr. Corey, I'm going to call him Mr. Corey because I can't remember his last name. Mr. May. No, that just gets me confused with James May. Mr. Corey, I'm sticking with it. If we get him for the next few games, I mean, he's got the experience. He's been with the team long enough. He's done the IP long enough that he gets it. And he's done some really good ones. I mean, he wrote Brotherhood. You're saying he was part of the writing team for Brotherhood. I want another Brotherhood, please. I want another one. I want yeah. If it's him, then it'll be all right. What we don't want him to do is go out and bring in some guy that's never done it before and mess everything up.
I hate to break it to you, Tom. I've just had a look at...
They've just announced it, haven't they? God damn it!
Not quite. I've just had a look at Mr. Corey May, and so obviously the last script he contributed to was Syndicate back in 2015. He's actually now the narrative director for Certain Affinity, a video game studio based in Austin, Texas.
Okay, so it's not him then.
He's completely out of
Right, okay. Well, I don't know then. I'm a bit worried now.
Oh, God.
Okay.
They're helping co-develop Halo Infinite.
You will turn that page off right now. We are not talking about Halo today.
And they helped co-develop Halo 4. Oh, God. What have we done?
Turn it off, Sam. Stop. I'm not talking about Halo today. We will do that another time. I've got too many opinions on that.
A few more small things we wanted to get to. So we'll start...
Didn't you want to talk about PUBG?
About what?
You wanted to talk about PUBG.
Yes, so there's PUBG news. So it's been announced that PUBG Lite is going to shut down at the end of April. Now, PUBG Lite is basically the less technically demanding version of the game, because PUBG is, for some reason, incredibly demanding on one's computer. I don't know how they justify it, given if we just look at how it looks, it makes no sense why it's so demanding on your hardware. But I think it's a mixture of a real shame and also a bit of a dick move to say we're going to get rid of the version that demands less of your PC's hardware. Like, with certain things, for example, with something like Warzone, COD Warzone or whatever, I think that there should be for a lot of games. Like I think Pro Evolution and Soccer do it with PES Lite. Release a less technically demanding version so more people can play your game.
Yeah, I mean, I know quite a few people that play it like the mobile version.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that falls under this, doesn't it? That the whole mobile system, and they're going to be very upset if PUBG Lite, it comes under that. So they're going to be very upset by the end of April when they go in, because they don't keep up with game news. So it's all just going to be turned off, and they'll be like, what? Oh, okay. So, yeah, it's a shame, really.
Hang on, so I've just double checked. So the Game Informer article states, it's worth clarifying that PUBG Lite is not to be confused with PUBG Mobile Lite, which is the simple version of Battlegrounds, and that will still be available in the US.
Oh, okay. Oh, in the US. Right. In the US fills me with great confidence.
Yeah, so it's really one of those... it's one of those really kind of what's going on with this situation, because, I mean, the team behind PUBG are really, hesitant to give any kind of information, really. It took them a while. It took them a while to clarify what was going on with their sodding loot boxes for their clothing. And then they finally announced, oh, wait, you've got to get 3 bits of clothing that are in the same set to be able to wear the damn thing. And that could take God knows how many pulls in a crate.
Yeah. I didn't realise that PUBG is no longer owned by Bohemia.
Is it not?
No, it's literally under PUBG Corporation. So unless that's a subsidiary of Bohemia. Subsidiary... No? Bohemia? Subsidiaries... Does it come under that? It does not. No, they are completely individual games now.
PUBG has always been a bit of a weird thing because it was the first to take the craze of the battle royale to its kind of like, it took over.
Second.
What was the first then?
DayZ. Yep. The Armored 2 mod for DayZ had 3 different editions, and one of them had absolutely nothing to do with zombies.
Oh, okay.
It was literally go in there, and it was essentially a battle royale, but without the collapsing walls and stuff, and there just would never be a winner. I think some modders decided they made it on their specific servers, but yeah, the whole battle royale thing, it's all spawned from the DayZ mod.
Okay, so the first standalone game to really latch onto it. Really. It's probably the better way to put it.
Yes,
and then obviously it got outshone by
Bohemia decided they were going to do it,
and then obviously it got outshone by Fortnite when that ramped up in popularity, and partly because of the fact that, hey, Fortnite's free, PUBG costs God knows how much money, like, which one are you going to play? Like, realistically, think about it. I always found that funny that they were like, oh no, we have the better game. It's like, then why are you charging for it when you've got fucking microtransactions and loot crates in it? Over there, they're doing the same thing as you, but it's free, so more people can access that game.
Yeah. There's something I found out recently.
What?
Fortnite wasn't originally a battle royale.
We talked about it 2 weeks ago. Fortnite was meant to be a base builder that Epic Games publicised at
a survival.
E3 2013, I want to say. They had a really cool little
and
concept
then DayZ
cinematic.
came out, and they were like, DayZ came out, and they're like, ooh, we can jump on that, and then it evolved very quickly.
As I said 2 weeks ago, like I'm annoyed it didn't probably come out with that, because that looked like an interesting little base builder. That version of the game. And also, have you watched the teaser for it? The art style is so different from what they ended up going with.
No? Oh, I'll have to look back at that then.
Let me drop it for you in the...
I mean, to be fair, if Fortnite wasn't essentially Fortnite, I actually quite like the art style they've got, to be fair. The cartoony thing, it looks really cool, but as a game, it's too much for me to handle. My brain ain't quick enough. So
here's the teaser here. I'll just drop it for you. It's even longer ago. It was 9 years ago. This teaser came out. So it's 2012 at that point.
Ah!
It's like
I just had like full volume YouTube advert there.
It looks so unbelievably different than what we ended up getting.
Oh, I sort of like that.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. That is considerably different.
For those of you listening, if you type in Fortnite teaser 2012, you'll get the E3 teaser they put out. Oh no, it's 2011. This was, excuse me. So Fortnite teaser 2011, it will come up, and it's obviously it's a teaser trailer that they put out, but it's got a really nice art style that I actually prefer to the one they went full for the battle royale game.
Yeah, this is really cool. No, there's like zombies and everything. Yeah. Okay.
I said it was meant to be like a zombie base builder thing, but they decided for some reason, let's go in the direction of making a battle royale.
Why didn't they just, pick a different name and build the battle royale thing?
I don't know.
As well, and just have 2 games. They could have made so much more.
How very odd.
I'd have played that over 7 days.
Yeah.
That just from that trailer, that looks better than 7 days.
Looks good. I said I'm quite disappointed they didn't end up going with it.
Yeah.
So, 2 more small stories I want to talk about.
Yes.
So, we'll start with to be fair, they kind of link into each other. Xbox Cloud Gaming is going to bring a bunch of original Xbox and Xbox 360 games to mobile phones via the cloud streaming.
Wait, what? I haven't heard about this.
Okay, so, again, via Video Gamer, the Cloud Gaming app, which is currently in beta, is going to bring the following games available to play on mobile. So Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Double Dragon Neo, Fable 2, Fallout New Vegas, Gears of War 2, Gears of War 3, Gears of War Judgment, Jetpack Refueled with touch controls enabled, Cameo, Perfect Dark and Perfect Dark Zero, The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, and Viva Pinata and Viva Pinata Trouble in Paradise, both with enableable touch controls.
You're saying that I can play Oblivion on my phone?
Yes.
This is the best idea ever.
The one thing is you will need the a Bluetooth, because annoyingly, I have an Xbox One controller, but it's one of the old ones, so it's not Bluetooth enabled.
Wait, Bluetooth is in Xbox One controllers?
It is for the newer ones, yeah.
I've got 2 newer ones on my desk. I had no idea.
It's so that they could set up this kind of thing, and also so you could connect them to PC without having...
Without the cables.
Yeah. If you had a Bluetooth reader in them.
Okay.
But I want to say, so okay. That's a pretty decent selection of games. Fallout New Vegas, Morrowind, Oblivion, Fable 2, even though I know it is a Fable game, so it's like Peter Molyneux's Lies.
Fable 2 is probably the best of the series, I'd say.
What? Because Peter Molyneux, when it was being made, shut his mouth and was like, "I'm just going to stand back and let the team do it," and then it was like, "Oh no, Fable 3, I want all this stuff in it."
Fable 3 was horrendous. So
it was awful.
Yes. Yeah. it was the worst one.
But yeah, I was going to say, but I wanted to get into a little thing about this because obviously, that's a very good selection of 14 games available to play, or 16 games, sorry, able to play on your mobile phone.
To begin with, I mean, knowing Xbox, they'll release a lot more once they've got the compatibility to sort it.
And obviously, there's also in beta, there's the version of, I think, streaming also for your PC. So that's basically the death of Google Stadia, which I'm very happy about. And also, obviously, you've got Game Pass on the Xbox, and also
that's cross. If you get there's 2 different versions.
I mean, Game Pass Ultimate is the one I'm talking about.
Oh, okay, so that's cross compatible with.
So that's PC, Xbox, and also mobile phones. You can obviously get the Game Pass app, play on there.
Yes.
But I wanted to say, so with regard to this, do you think that this kind of streaming, because we talked about it obviously a couple of weeks ago, that Microsoft seemed to be more and more focusing on basically making their own Netflix for games, a massive library of great titles that can be played pretty much anywhere.
I mean, it's a good marketing strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic to, as you say, see these 16 incredible games. I mean, I'll say it again: Morrowind, Oblivion, Gears of War 2 and Gears of War 3, and Fallout New Vegas available to play on your mobile phone. That's an incredible opening gambit.
I mean, I'm assuming this going to come under the whole Game Pass thing?
Yeah, so it's including Game Pass.
It's including Game Pass.
So the actual advertising block that Microsoft has is
£7 a month, and I can do that.
Download the Game Pass on Android devices and experience cloud gaming beta with Xbox Game Pass Ultimate today. $10.99. I think you might be going to $11.99 for so many games able to play on PC, Xbox, and on your phone.
Jeez, I mean, is there something better than a bargain? That's practically giving them away. Yeah. Jeez. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm down for that. That works.
Because obviously, we saw that, as we said, Stadia tried to do this with their streaming stuff. Tom, were you ever slightly interested in getting Google Stadia, or is it always kind of thing you saw this is going to be a Google, hunk of junk that's probably going to die within a year of coming up? I'm not going to touch it. How did you feel about it?
I mean, honestly, I've only recently started seeing all the Stadia adverts.
Oh, wow.
And it took me a very long period of time to then realise, oh, wait, it's a gaming platform? For me, if I'm gaming on a console, I'm on my Xbox, and if I'm gaming on my PC, I use Steam. It's how it's always been for me. So I think I just stuck to that. Especially with the now knowing that a lot of the Xbox games you get obviously with the Xbox app on PC as well. I can cross-play them a lot. So for me, there was not really a decision to be made. I just didn't change from what I was doing before. That's
very interesting that you said that you only just recently realised that Stadia was a game streaming platform. And I think, there's obviously there was the news a few weeks ago that Stadia had shut down all its shoes and essentially cancelled any games that were going to come out for the damn thing. But this might be the final nail in the coffin, because Microsoft, with all the studios that they've acquired, they've got all these indie studios they've bought up, Double Fine, Ninja Theory, Obsidian, and now adding, with their ZeniMax purchase, adding Bethesda, id Softworks, and I can't remember who else was involved in that, but bringing in a big group of more studios. That's going to be an absolute just buffet worth of choices with regards to what you want to play. And as you said, that's That's so for the price of Netflix and Disney Plus combined gets you installable and cloud gaming on phone, PC, and Xbox.
Yeah.
I don't see personally how, Sony have tried it. Sony have tried to do a similar kind of thing, but
You missed a word in there as well. Unlimited.
Yeah.
Because it is, essentially. Because even when you're not even then restricted by hardware, because even if your storage is full up and you want to play a different game, you just delete one and install.
It's
the
like
next.
the Nvidia streaming thing. You can play on a pretty crap PC. You can play something like Assassin's Creed Valhalla. No, I think Valhalla's on there yet, but something like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, because it just streams from servers.
See, I think the issue with the whole streaming from servers thing that's very reliant on internet.
Yes, I was going to bring that up. Is that it requires you to have a very good internet connection.
Yeah, whereas I think this stuff sounds like it's you download it and then you can like play it offline if you need to and.
Again, it's the mobile stuff. That's the streaming. That's the streaming side of it. Yeah. PC, as we say, you can just install stuff on your computer, but it's. I do wonder. You do bring up an interesting point. I do wonder if this is going to run into the same problems that Stadia has run into, stuff that even stuff like Netflix that's run into. If internet service providers are going to allow for the bandwidth required to get good streaming on hardware.
Yeah, I mean, if they do it. If they manage to figure it out and it all gets sorted. This is probably one of the biggest leap forwards in gaming technology that we've had in a long time. Because I mean, a lot of it, I think this is akin to sort of the original consoles.
Oh wow!
I think, or no, seriously, because if you think about it, what have we been doing? Like, gaming was very much PC based for a very long time until somebody thought, let's make something that's specifically designed for it, i.e. the console.
I mean, to be fair, you've got to go.
It's spread a lot.
You've got to go all the way back to the arcade days.
Oh yeah,
and then you've got the home consoles.
I wasn't going to go back
the Atari. Obviously, that was like the earliest of early days.
Yeah,
but I get what you mean in terms of when you first got proper power for PCs.
What have we been doing in what has gaming technology been doing since the console was invented? We've just created more consoles, and more and more and more and more and more and more, and PCs have just been getting better at being PCs, and that's all that's been happening. Is we've been moving forward in technological level, but the actual technology of what it is hasn't moved at all. We've got consoles, and we've just.
I would disagree because you've got stuff like obviously you had AR gaming with on the stuff like the 3DS. On phones, you had like loads of augmented reality games.
Yeah,
and then you made the jump to virtual reality.
Yeah, and okay, so the VR stuff's happened, but that's just added another section. This sort of thing of combining everything into one place, everything going from being multiple different sections and amalgamating them into one thing. It's probably, I mean, from my perspective, don't seem like it, but I'm actually quite a people person. I like having people being together and interconnectivity and stuff like that. And this, for me, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, right, well, that means, because this is essentially crossplay, but massive. This is more than crossplay, if you will. And it'd allow so many more people to be able to interact with others, especially in a time like now.
Yeah.
Where we're being told we're not allowed to go within however many feet of another human being. It's something that we have needed for a very long time, and I think it's something that's going to be very good for the games industry.
There is a flip side, though.
There's always a flip side, and you're always the one that finds it.
Yes, well, that is that we will lose. We could end up losing the history of video games. That is a nice professional segue to talk about the Sony this week announced that it will shut down PS3, PSP, and PS Vita games to be bought via the stores. Obviously, the PS P sort of had already been shut down, but as of what day was it again? Find it.
See, this is why Xbox never made handheld consoles.
Yeah, but I can't remember. I think it was like the end of July or something. As of then, you will no longer be able to buy PSP games from Sony's website and be able to install them. Now, this is what I mean. As much as we have, great streaming services coming up, the accessibility to have stuff like, so for example, and this is where my concern comes in slightly, stuff like I've got my Xbox 360 sat right in front of me. To the side, I have a whole wall of games.
Yeah.
Now, the old analogy that is used is if there is, if you need to, you can take your console and your games into a nuclear bunker and you've got all your games you want. With something like Steam, with something like the Xbox Series S, which is exclusively downloaded games, once the internet goes off, obviously the Xbox Series X is slightly different because obviously it's all downloaded to your hard drive, but even with games like you own, but you haven't downloaded them, as soon as the servers decide to get turned off, you lose everything.
I see what you mean. Yeah. Because
there's been a lot of discussions about making sure we preserve the history of video games, making sure we preserve our medium. With movies, it's pretty easy to, say if Citizen Kane, for crying out loud. I've got a DVD for Citizen Kane sat on my shelf. If I want to watch it digitally, I can go and buy it on various services. But if I want to play something like, I don't know, pick an old game off the top of your head. Like a personal favourite I used to play was the old WWF wrestling games. Yeah. If I wanted to go and play those, I've got to try and find a ROM, and I've got to make sure it actually worked. I've got to make sure that the controls are set up properly. It's all about it's becoming harder and harder to go and play these games that have changed a generation. Like for example, one of the most influential games of all time is Grand Theft Auto 3. The idea of when GTA was taken from a top-down perspective to a third-person world you can explore was incredible. It is now getting harder and harder to be able to get a copy or play a copy of GTA 3. Yes, it's on Steam, but as I said, what happens when Steam servers get shut down?
Yeah, I think it's very much reliant on the companies themselves to keep running.
Which with something like Atari, you can like Atari as a games maker died many, many years ago. You can't play there's the odd ROM out there on the internet, but it's damn difficult to play an old Atari 2600 game for instance.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just one of those things that with advancement and with new technology comes loss. You lose a little bit of the previous or the end of the list. You lose a little bit off the end every time you move forward. You lose a little bit from behind you. I think it's just going to be one of those things because it's not just in video games. That's happening with any advancement we make.
Is it though? Because it's an interesting point you made that with advancements in technology, you will lose a little bit off the end. But I was going to say that it only appears to be in video games. I can't think of a single film that was made in the 1900s that isn't really easy to get a DVD copy of or a VH. I guess VHS is a bit of a different thing, but retailers like Amazon, HMV, they still sell copies of old 1900s films. It only appears to be video games that it's getting more and more difficult to get your hands on.
Video games don't have the people to preserve them quite as much, do they? Because everything's becoming very much an online thing, like you say, HMV and everything, they've been preserving DVDs and films and music and all that sort of thing for literally years. If you look at how old that company is, they were created in the 1800s, something like that, with gramophones and vinyl, or what was then considered records because they were not made of vinyl. But you know what I mean? They've been producing this stuff for that many years that it's second nature to them to continue selling hard copies of things and things like that. But when it comes to games, the game industry has not been around nearly as long. And with that comes the people only tend to start preserving things once stuff's been around for a certain period of time. And for a lot of people and a lot of people within the industry, games as an industry has not been around long enough to start preserving. As and I know we both disagree with that. Like, preservation of this stuff is important regardless. And I know, actually, I know of at least 3 actual stores, 3 actual shops around England that actually preserve that preserve video games. Like, there's actual, they've got console setups and stuff, and I think one of them's a cafe. You go in there, you buy a drink, you sit down, you play video games for a bit on like a retro games console they've got set up, whatever. And there are places out there that do preserve the history of these things, but it's getting, I think, with video games, it's skipping the section that we've got for like TV and film. In TV and film, we're at the point now where if you want to see something from 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, you can find it like that. Whereas
the games industry is only like 50 years old, I think, at this point.
Yeah, the games industry has skipped that point, and we've gone straight to, well, if it's not current, then it belongs in a museum.
Yeah.
And people have started creating these little odd geek cafes and game stores and stuff like that are essentially little museums for video games that have all the stuff from when people played 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, but they're still selling them. So they are essentially skipping the all access section and going straight from not current to being in a museum, whereas a lot of other areas don't do that. So I think that the preservation is happening for games and stuff. It's just not as readily available for the average person. So it's like, because you want to get an Atari 64, I can give you a list of 3 different shops that'll sell you one. Okay, but I can't guarantee that it'll be cheap.
Yeah.
And I can't guarantee that because it's not going to be, because it is rare. It is something that has become very rare because at the time nobody thought it was very good.
Well, I wonder.
And suddenly nowadays we're all like, well, we want that.
Yeah.
We want it. It was good. We want it. And now everyone's going, well, we don't make them anymore. We haven't made them in years, and now they're running a bit low, so they're rare. And so it's not readily available, and it's not going to be cheap for people, but it is there.
Well, that's brought up an interesting point, actually, because you made me think just there. Obviously, in the past few years, we've had kind of a revitalized demand for vinyl records, for example, or I saw or DVDs or tapes. I'm pretty sure at some point I'm expecting there to be an uptake in why not get stuff on VHSs.
If VHS comes back, I'm going to be a very rich man.
Yeah. But I wonder if, as you said, I've got this feeling that won't be the same in the video games industry because, don't get me wrong, there is stuff like the SNES and the PlayStation Minis and all that kind of stuff that are very, very popular. They were re-released by Nintendo and Sony, respectively, for a reason. But no developer, because partly because of the technological nature of how difficult games are to develop, but also because of the way they've gotten used to doing things, I doubt there will be, say a console comes out that uses cartridges. I very, very highly doubt that certain publishers will release a cartridge and a disc and a digital version of their games. It'll be, we'll put it on disc because we kind of feel like we still have to, but we're mainly doing digital.
Well, yeah, but then you also have to think of it, you can't do a straight comparison with, say, music and games or TV and movies and games. You can't do a straight comparison like that because when you're looking at TV and movies, you're comparing it to like Netflix and stuff, but all movies are in, like, they're all compatible, all of them. They're all like MP4s, MOV files. They're all compatible because they're all made to be compatible. They're all designed to be able to run on CDs, like, because that was the popular thing at the time. That was the thing we used. We used CDs and DVDs. That was a commonplace practice thing to do. The same with music. Like, we use CDs, we used vinyls. They're all compatible with each other. It's all one thing. When it comes to games, it's not, because it's like at the moment there's not that much. There's Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and what is the Wii or the Switch?
Switch, yeah.
Yeah, the Switch. That's about it. But you're talking about preserving games. You go back to when, like, the era in which you're wanting to preserve these games. and there was a lot more. So yeah, PlayStation, Xbox, maybe at the later points, but probably not. Like the SNES 64, GameCube, the Atari. Like there's more than I can think of right now, and they were all individual, and none of them had cross-compatible games. Maybe the SNES and the SNES 64. I hold my hands up. I'm not entirely sure, but the games that were made for them were made specific. And so the actual media is separated then from the thing that it can be observed on, I think. So you can't do a straight comparison.
I understand what you mean, because I'm just thinking about, and it's a very interesting point, given that, as you say, film and TV, that was all, it's all single format. Music.
That was the word I was trying to find. Thank you.
Music
I couldn't think of it.
Is either in its raw form in like a WAV-esque file, or it's a more compressed MP3 format. Either way, you're able to play it.
Yeah.
But it's in a very good point you've made. You look at the amount of handheld consoles that there were, in the early 2000s. There wasn't just Nintendo and Sony stuff. There was stuff like the Bitcorp Mate, the Harco Game Master, the Atari Lynx, all these kind of stuff.
And the later ones, when the Game Boy stuff started picking up.
Yeah. And trying to be able to, trying to get so it's accessible is going to be near impossible. But it's still, it's still very, very important, at least I believe, that we preserve the future, if only to see where we've come from. To see how we got from Pong to, to Majora's Mask, to GTA 3, to I don't know, in Elder Scrolls 6, for example. To track the development of our industry. Because, you can absolutely do that in film, for example. You can see the silent film, the black and white, to, the advent of Technicolor. And up to, starting to get towards the more 90s, where you start to get used more CGI and more creative, is the only word I can think of, more creative filmmaking. And it's at the modern day where it's like, whole films are done. Also, I missed out the animation thing there.
Yeah.
And it's something that's going to be increasingly. I've got a feeling it's going to be increasingly up for discussion, up for concern for those who are interested in, as we say, tracking the history of the games. Because the publisher's going to be like, oh no, we're just going to chuck all this stuff out. Chuck the new stuff is what makes us the most money. But for us, as I said before, we are enthusiasts. We are the enthusiast gamer. We care about not just what we're playing now, but what is being played in the future and how we learn from it.
Yeah, I think it also like the history of it as well, because like we were saying about the Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just when I was talking about Odyssey and saying it's just not Assassin's Creed, that's it's the comparison of that game to its namesake history.
Yeah.
And the other, like the history of the Assassin's Creed series and the feel that you get from all of those other games, and how much you're pulled into the story of the characters and the characters that are being portrayed by other characters, and the way that they portray the story of you are playing as someone who is then viewing memories.
Yeah.
You yourself are not playing as that character, but you are playing as that character through someone who is viewing them as memories. And they managed to get that feel right so long, and then they did Odyssey and it just didn't feel right. It's the history of each franchise makes it what it is. How
do you feel about this? Because it's something that just popped into my head. You look at stuff like the Oscars or the Golden Globes or the any of these movie or or the Emmys, for example, for TV, or whatever the ones for the music awards are. Okay, you look at those.
Yeah.
And though you've got the big films that are making money and the big TV shows that are making lots of money, they award those. Awards go to stuff that's being creative in its industry, that's being innovative. You have people that don't care so much about making money and more just want to make a thought-provoking good film. In the industry, I wonder if the problem we have when it comes to documenting the history of video games is that at the very top you've got the publishers who are making so much money from it, and they're just like, we just want to make the money. We are just interested in making these products. And you do have indie developers who are like, no, I want to make a good game. I want to make a thought-provoking piece of work. But those thought-provoking pieces of work don't really get the spotlight shown on them at stuff like at the Game BAFTAs we had last week. You know, a lot of the blockbusters get into those awards. Yes, you have kind of like more less well-known stuff. You know, for example, Hades, I think, was the game of the year last at the BAFTAs.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's still all about, you know, those are still dominated by those publishers making so much money. They have all the money to buy developers, even though they make, you know, non-thought, you know, and I'm not saying that all games need to be thought-provoking. I'm using that as an example from what we've seen with a lot of stuff from, you know, previous Oscar winners and all that kind of thing. And, you know, a lot of films and TV that have won awards are the ones that are, you know, are bookmarked when it comes to documenting the history of that medium. I wonder if that's a problem we're going to run into in the games industry, is that because these award shows honour, you know, the big blockbusters, as opposed to focusing, I would hope, on more like indie titles, that then, you know, that's where the documenting the past is going to be more and more difficult for us in the industry.
Yeah. I think with the big award shows as well, like, I mean, you see that across all of them, I think, not just with Game BAFTAs. It's very predominantly based around the big budget and big stuff.
Mm.
So I think it was I don't know, I missed the Game BAFTAs, so I don't know if it's the same for that, but I was watching, I think it was the TV one, I think,
Mm-hmm.
And they had a thing specifically, no, it was the Oscars. They had a section specifically for indie.
Yeah.
And indie films, but it was one award for the best indie film. That's it. That's all it got. That's all they got. The rest of them were all big budget, essentially Hollywood style movies.
Sorry, I don't think I made my point right. What I mean in terms of, you know, highlighting the smaller, more creative films is, like, you know, there's been a lot of talk recently about the fact that the big blockbuster stuff that make the money, you know, the superhero films, you know, your Fast and Furious, that kind of stuff, that doesn't get considered for awards in the film, right? But in the games industry, you've constantly got stuff like Call of Duty and those types of titles being considered for, like, Game of the Year awards. And what I mean, do you understand what I mean?
I'm with you. Yep. Yeah, I'm with you now. Yeah, no, I don't agree with any of that, because, like, I mean, if FIFA can be Game of the Year maybe once every 7 years, I'm going to say. Because as much as, FIFA, people may find it enjoyable. I know you find it enjoyable, don't you, Sam?
I used to before I got absolutely flooded with microtransactions.
Yeah. The game on its own is considered entertaining. Yeah. And I accept that. I don't find it entertaining myself, but that's because I don't get along with football in general. So that's different. Yeah. But yeah, so as much as FIFA is a big budget game, it is just one game. And they can call it FIFA 17, FIFA 18, FIFA 19, FIFA 20, FIFA 2021, all they want. It's one game. They release a new game every year, but they don't. They re-release the same game every year with new updates. That's all it is. They improve the graphics. Maybe they change the engine every few years, but that's about it. And the fact that they're getting away with that is ridiculous. So that is something that I'm going to go with, of games that just repeat themselves, like FIFA. Call of Duty is guilty of this considerably. They have released so many games where they've just essentially reskinned everything, make the graphics just a little bit better, and then gone, hey, look, it's a new game.
Yeah.
Games that do that shouldn't, like, there should be restrictions on the award shows that could, like, I don't want to say remove them completely, but there should be restrictions. So, like, it has to have original content, like proper original content. Like, they can't be reusing stuff or something like that. So, like I said, a FIFA every 7 years is when its gap opens up to being able to win. Call of Duty, same for that. Like, because granted, Call of Duty don't release a game every year, but like it has to, every few years it can be considered. Like, every single year just seems like it's a bit of an overkill and taking up a spot for a game that actually could be considerably better. I mean, admittedly, let's be fair, Sam, the games industry over the past 2 years has not been great.
No.
We've not had not had many decent games come out recently, so fair on it to have it this time round.
Well, if I may, I've just brought up the. I know we've been dragging on a little bit longer, but I think I'm quite enjoying this conversation. I think it's important we have this kind of conversation. I've just brought up the nominees and the winners from the Game Batters last week.
Hit me.
So, EE's Game of the Year, which I believe is an award given to. I think it's basically this is the public vote, because I think all of these others are considered by a board of
judges.
Well, sorry, let me correct myself. As far as I remember, the BAFTAs is a board of judges, but also part of a public vote. Now, those involved in the EE Game of the Year are public choice games. So the EE Game of the Year was, or those that were nominated were Animal Crossing New Horizons, Call of Duty Warzone, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, The Last of Us Part 2, and Valorant. That was won by Last of Us Part 2.
Okay.
Something like Technical Achievement, which is an outstanding title that makes the most of the software available, or the hardware available, excuse me. The winner was Dreams, made by Media Molecule, and the nominees were Demon's Souls, Doom Eternal, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Last of Us 2, and Spider-Man Miles Morales.
My God.
If we look at something like supporting, obviously,
Microsoft Flight Simulator is on that list with FIFA and Call of Duty. I just want to point that out there.
I mean, I would agree with regard to, but I think it's considering the what they were able to do on the, because it's a really really power intensive game, that thing. So let me just find where's the Game of the Year. Here we go. So the games of the year that were nominated were Animal Crossing New Horizons, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Half-Life Alyx, Last of Us Part 2, and Spider-Man Miles Morales. So, with this, it's kind of like what I was trying to get to, or what I was talking about with regard to the Oscars thing. The Oscars, you will see lots of, yes, they're made by big studios, but they're also very technically impressive and enjoyable. So I would argue that all of those that were in the Game of the Year category with regard to the Games BAFTAs are in that. All are not the same as every game before them. If they were sequels, they all had unique aspects to them, and they have, they do have, to be fair to them, they do have some interesting categories. They've got Best British Game, Debut Game, and Evolving Game. For those that may have started, like for example, the winner was Sea of Thieves this year, which had launched in a really in a ropey state. But then, as they had time with it, they made it into a better and better game.
Yes.
Just trying to find, because I believe there was one that was kind of a bit of an odd ball in these categories.
No, I like Sea of Thieves. It's a good one, though.
I was going to say, just on our conversation we had earlier with regard to Assassin's Creed Valhalla was actually nominated with regard to Best Narrative. So it's... I can't remember what you thought of Valhalla's story, Tom, but it's with regard to the judging committee. They thought it was actually quite. It didn't win out, and that was beaten by Hades. Hades, I think, cleaned up at the BAFTAs the other day, but it was up there along with Cyberpunk. And I was going to say that's another interesting thing. So as I said, that they had Best British Game and all that kind of thing, but they also have a category which is Best Original Property to highlight those those titles that try and be different, and try and bring something new to the table.
Yeah.
Is it this one? Surely it's this one here. I can't remember which one it was, but yeah. So that's like, as I said, for some of the categories they do, try and highlight stuff that isn't the yearly fare. But there has been, I think they got rid of they had family and multiplayer categories. Now, if I remember rightly, the families category had stuff like Rocket League and FIFA in it. Just because it's rated 3, there wasn't anything like it's got to be a good game. It's just it's a 3 rating. Let's pick some popular stuff. That's what I meant by not highlighting the stuff that tries to be unique within that space.
Yeah, I think it's the definitions of each award as well. They don't make that. So I mean, to be honest, like a lot of them are just, what is the best?
Yeah.
that one's the best, this one's the best,
Yeah,
one's the
yeah.
best, this one's the best. And they don't really define them very well about, well, in what way, how, where does this fit?
Yeah, yeah.
And like, I think if they did a better definition on what the award actually was, they'd be able to get away with being able to say some of them for like the big games are able to have this, but then smaller games can have that, and that sort of thing. Like, I think that me saying that there needs to be more definition while using this, that, and then. There you go. There's a sentence. But yeah, like I don't know. I think the better definition around the actual award titles and stuff would make it better.
Yeah, yeah. I think with that, Tom, we've gone on for quite a while. I think
Is it time to end?
I believe it is, yes. We've talked about a lot of stuff today.
Oh, dear God. 2.5 hours.
Indeed.
Oof.
I mean,
I didn't have the timer up, so
I mean, also, to be fair, like, this is why we started the podcast, because you and I can just talk forever. So we thought,
yes,
at least we can put some kind of time limit on it. This is actually going to be, to date, the longest episode we've done. But oh well.
We're coming up to 2 hours 40.
Yeah, 2 hours 40 minutes.
Easily the longest.
Now, Tom, we mentioned it a little bit earlier. Self-promotion, please, Squire. Of course, you've got streams, you've got your Patreon. Go for it.
Self-promotion, right. So there's been a bit of a change. I'm doing less, because you brought up my YouTube series. There's going to be less to do with actual standard videos on YouTube now. They're not as popular as I hoped they would be, so I'm not doing that mostly. To do with stuff like Project Winter, maybe some Among Us videos, stuff like that. Like little like events videos I'm going to keep doing. When it comes to like gameplay stuff, it's literally I'm just going to be streaming it. On the upside though, I'm multi-platform streaming now. So if you get me on Twitch, Facebook or YouTube, Griff's X Blues, I'm streaming live to those all three at the same time. And all of the chats are intermingleable. So you can be watching on one site and other people can be watching on another, and you can talk to each other because I set it up that way. I also set up a load of new commands, so like you can go on there and type !pod, and it'll give you the link back to this this podcast. So there you go. I thought that would make you happy.
Oh, I just I've got an announcement to make. Actually, I just remembered in a minute, but
dun dun dun.
Yeah. So that's all Griff's X Blues, isn't it? On Facebook,
everything,
YouTube,
literally everything. I've also got a Twitter account as well. It just posts notifications of when I'm going live. So yeah, there's that.
And is there any updates incoming for those that are giving you money on Patreon?
Nobody's giving me money yet. I live in hope, but it is there. If you go on Twitch again, I put another command in, !! Patreon. It'll give you the link to that. But again, it's Patreon at Griff's X Blues. It's literally any money that goes onto there is going to be going towards my animation project, which is coming along quite nicely, actually. I've almost got to the end of Season 1 scripting, so we're looking good at the moment.
You're slowly getting there, son.
Really getting there. I know you can, not really.
I didn't think you'd trust me with that.
No. Shamelessly plug yourself,
Thank
Sam.
you very much. Twitter.com/Wilbo_99 for ramblings on politics, video games, or attempts to be a wannabe video games journalist, football, wrestling, and lots of other gubbins. Also, YouTube, I've got 2 channels, not posted on for a while, but we'll get there soon. The Football Network for Football Manager content, and on bloody brilliant games for roundups of games news, one of 2 that we mentioned in this podcast you might have seen a couple of weeks ago. Also, no Twitch, I don't do that, but we have got an announcement to make regarding the podcast. I haven't told you about this because I just remembered it on the spot.
You haven't told me what?
No. So
what's happening?
Now, as those of you that listen to the podcast should know, hopefully, we post these on YouTube and also SoundCloud. Now, SoundCloud has been a bit of a pain for us recently, so we are contemplating the move to Anchor, which is a Spotify affiliated service.
Okay.
Now, I am in the process of trying to get everything set up over there, so it's very likely that this and all the previous podcasts will be on Anchor, therefore Spotify, and also means that it's a little bit, if you're someone that has Spotify Premium but also wants to listen to this on the go and doesn't really want to get SoundCloud Premium, you can just listen to it on Spotify But yes, please subscribe to this channel. Of course, this is the channel for the How to Adult podcast. And fingers crossed, all going well, we will be over there on Anchor or Spotify again at the How to Adult podcast.
There is also another thing happening with this YouTube channel.
Yes.
Which you sort of know about it.
Yes.
I don't know how much you know about it. This isn't just going to be for the podcast. This is for the entirety of the How to Adult group. So there's about 30 of us.
We're evolving.
We're evolving. It's a bit scary. But we're going to be running some D&D stuff once we're allowed out of the house. Once Mr. Boris says we can go outside again and do all the fancy events things. So I know you said you wanted to do EGX and stuff.
Well, that's more just coverage for Bloody Brilliant. But yes.
Well, yeah, we're going to be doing that, but also a lot of the live action stuff. You see all of our lovely, lovely faces IRL, and yeah, so that all of the group stuff is all going to be on here. My stuff's going to be on my channel, but it will be separate. So anything I do with the group, like predominantly like IRL things and D&D things and all of that sort of thing, will all appear on this channel. So this isn't just for the podcasts. Just thought you should know the podcasts are just the beginning.
Yes.
The
podcast is how we thought we'd kick this off. Obviously, if you've made it to this point of the podcast, you know Tom and I can talk for a long, long, long time. If this happens to be your, I should say, if this happens to be your first podcast and you've got to this point, you can tell we talk for a while. If you've listened to all of our previous ones, yeah, you know that by now.
No. If you've started with this one, which is the longest one so far, I congratulate you. Congratulations for making it this far.
But yes, we will be evolving the content that appears on this channel. So you'll be able to see more groups and not just hear mine and Tom and Jack's voices for God knows how many hours on length.
Yes. Right.
With that,
let's end it. We need to end it.
Yes, indeed.
We're rambling too much.
Thank you very much for listening to this edition of the How to Adult podcast. And from Tom and I, we shall see you in another 2 weeks where we've hopefully, fingers crossed, got quite an interesting episode planned. And hopefully Jack will be back with us for that episode. As I said, with all that, thank you very much. We shall see you in a future episode. Goodbye.
Bye.